Namaste, everybody. I'm Tamal Dodge. This is Casey Newman. She's going to be demoing today. We'll do another session of yoga for absolute beginners. We're going to play with some crescents and some various standing postures, the modified variations, and the fuller expressions. But we're going to start standing right now. Our feet together, big toes touch, heels slightly apart. We'll take the left hand to our chest, our right hand to the belly, and we'll close the eyes. Starting the process of meditating on our inhales and our exhales. And why we do this is we're trying to find a rhythm, a pulse of oxygen. It doesn't have to be forced, but it has to be aware. We have to make it so it's mindful, not mindless. And as you find your sequence of inhales and exhales, meaning it's like a call and response or an echo, we'll take a big inhale through the nose and we'll hold it at the very top, seal it. And then out of the mouth. Again, inhale deeply through the nose, holding at the peak. Let it go. Go back to breathing through the nose. Make your breath sound like you're fogging a mirror with your mouth shut. Or as if your breath was the ocean rushing on and off shore. Finding Ujjayi pranayama. Ujjayi means to conquer, to be victorious. And this is the style of breathing we want to keep consistent throughout our practice, so it's audible. You'll blink your eyes open, and then relax your arms by your sides for a moment. So Casey's going to have her palms facing forward, which is an external rotation of the arms. This is good for us. This is acceptable. Or she'll have her palms face each other, which is a neutral position of the shoulder, which is also very good. The thing we want to avoid is Casey's going to turn her palms to face back. We don't want to internally rotate too much because this tends to congest the space and create some problems later down the road. So palms face each other or they face forward. This applies everywhere, not just with her arms by her sides, but Casey's going to reach her arms up to the sky. Her palms are going to face back, but it's the same external rotation she did before because she hasn't changed the position of how her arms are in space. So relax your arms by your sides. Her palms are facing forward. She's not changing that. She's just raising her arms up, and that's still the external rotation. Again, she relaxes her arms by her sides. Now the palms will face each other. This is neutral, remember, this is good. She reaches her arms up, the palms still face each other. This is neutral. And relax your arms by your sides. This is important for us to look at because we're going to add these into some of the postures in a moment. Casey's going to turn to face forward this way. She's going to dump into her lower back for a moment and her butt's going to stick out. This is called an anterior tilt of the pelvis. We don't want this because it puts excessive strain in the lumbar spine. She's going to find a neutral position with her tail going under, so her frontal hip points lift. So we're looking for a mild posterior tilt, finding the neutral pelvis. That's in like every pose, whether we're in a standing pose like a warrior two, whether we're in a crescent pose, whether we're standing, whether we're in a plank or an upper push-up. We never want to be doing this. It's always a posterior tilt. These are just key components so we can implement them throughout our practice and we're aware of them right out the gate. So we're going to go to a downward facing dog. So Casey's going to come onto her hands and her feet. Once she's in her downward facing dog, she's going to make sure her legs are hips width apart and the heels neatly tucked behind the toes. The arms are shoulder width apart. The fingers should point forward, the hands spread wide. If you have hypermobile arms, a carrying angle, you can turn your fingers slightly outward. It gives you a little more structure when they angle outward. The forearms lift. The upper outer arms, which means the outer tricep, the outer deltoid, starts to wrap back. back. That's also a mild external rotation. The belly goes in, the hips move back, the thigh bones move back. Now, Casey's going to come to an upper push-up position or plank posture, stacking the shoulders over the wrists. So we're always lining up joints over joints. It's shoulder joint over elbow joint over wrist joint. That makes it actually easier. The index finger should glue down into the floor, and that's going to ensure that there's no pockets underneath the palms. Many times people say yoga hurts their wrist, but most often it's because they're dumping weight into the lateral part of the wrist, the pinky finger side of the wrist, and there's a little pocket underneath the hand. You can always drop your knees to the floor if you need to. We're here for a moment. The belly is going in, and then we look for that posterior tilt again. The tailbone scoops mildly towards the floor. Let's dump in the low back, Casey, for a second. We don't want this. This means there's no abdominal engagement. So the tailbone goes down, go for the posterior tilt, then the low belly lifts, the abdomen engages. Let's go back to downward facing dog. I'm going to do it again. Let's drift to plank, top of a push-up, pause. Stacking the shoulders over the wrist, joints over joints. The belly goes in, tailbone scoops towards the inner thighs. It's a lot of work in the beginning. If we're not used to accessing a low belly, the action of scooping the tail under is very awkward. But the more we do it, the better we get at it. If your knees are up, the thigh bones are pressing into the hamstrings. Take an inhale, and then exhale, downward facing dog. So now we're going to practice lowering. We've done this in other classes and other videos, but it's always good to reiterate everything. The more we practice the fundamentals, the more our practice grows and we can graduate to bigger things. So let's drift to plank. Casey's going to drop her knees to the floor for the first one. She's going to lean forward like she's looking over the edge of a cliff. Her shoulders will go beyond her fingers. Now she's going to lower halfway to the ground. Elbows hug in towards the sides of the body. The elbows have to stack over wrists, joint over joint. I know it's challenging, but that's the way we do it. Then you lower all the way to the ground. Untuck the toes. This is perfect. Notice how Casey's wrists are directly under the elbows. Nothing had changed since she had lowered from that chaturanga, that halfway point. Nothing changed in the arms. Now she's going to gently lift her chest about 6 inches off the floor. Things that are very common are the toes turn outward. So turn your toes outward. And this creates compression in the low back, and it kind of stunts our ability to create that posterior tilt we did earlier. So her big toes are actually going to turn in a little bit, and the heels move out a little bit. And that's going to soften this area in the sacrum, and it's going to help her take her inner thighs up to the sky. She's going to take her tailbone and scoop it towards the inner thighs. So her pubic bone presses into the floor, and there's no longer any strain right here in the low back. She's more creating an opening in the upper part of her body. She lowers her chest and chin to the floor. She's going to go to her hands and knees first, all fours, and then downward facing dog. Let's lift the right leg up to the sky. You're going to lunge your right foot between your hands. If you need help, you can always use your right hand to hold your right ankle and scoot it up. So Casey, grab that right ankle and show them how you'd scoot it up. Yes. There's no hard and fast rules how to get into these postures, just as long as we get into them safely without straining ourselves. We drop the left knee to the ground, untuck the left toes, and then take a moment just to scoot the left leg further back. If you feel any discomfort in the left knee, you can always fold the corner of your mat up and stuff it under the left knee for extra cushion. That padding helps a lot. Then you reach your arms to the sky. So we sink our hips forward and down, but then notice if you're deeply creasing and compressing where the right thigh bone is joining the right hip socket. So sink deeply there. See this. You can even see the crease. You want to back off a little bit by pulling the right hip bone away from the right thigh bone. And then again, we scoop the tailbone under so the frontal hip points lift. That posterior tilt we talked about in the very beginning. The front ribs start to go in because they want to jet out. Remember, the arms, the palms face each other or the palms can face back. What we don't want here is the palms facing forward. We don't want this because that's that internal rotation. So have your palms face forward for a moment, Casey. Now drop your arms in that position down by the ground. See how the palms face back here, and then when you reach them straight up, nothing changed? We don't want that, so palms face each other or they face back. The biceps should be closer to the cheekbones. Take a big inhale, then exhale, hands come down to the ground. We tuck your back toes, pick up your back knee, and we're going to step back to the top of a push-up. So you could put your knees to the floor if you want to keep modifying. Otherwise, we're going to lean forward again, and we're going to lower halfway to the ground. It's hard with no knees on the floor. Then all the way to the ground. Untuck the toes. Cobra pose. Lift the chest. Scoop the tailbone towards the inner thighs. Lower the chest and chin. Go to all fours, hands and knees. Then downward facing dog. Let's inhale, lift the left leg up. Exhale, lunge the foot forward. If you need your hand to help you scoot the leg up, you can. Drop the right knee, release the right toes, scoot the right leg way back. Then you're going to reach your arms to the sky. So if you want to put any padding, maybe a towel or fold the corner of your mat up underneath the right leg, it's a good option. We're sinking into the front knee. That means we're taking the left shin bone forward so it stacks over the ankle bone. Again, joint over joint. We pull the left hip bone away from the left thigh bone. The front ribs are going in, the same checklist of things. The arms get straighter. The triceps, the upper outer arms, when you hear yoga teachers say wrap them forward, just means they want your palms to face back, or you go for the neutral, the palms face each other. Either or. Take a big inhale, and exhale, hands come down to the ground. Tuck your back toes, pick up your back knee, step back to plank, top of a push-up. You can do it with your knees or no knees on the floor. Lean forward, lower chaturanga, halfway, then all the way. Cobra pose. Inhale, lift the chest. This time, exhale, lower your chin to the floor. You can either go to all fours, or you can tuck your toes. If you want a little spice, push yourself up to plank like a push-up, then downward facing dog. Let's inhale, lift your right leg up. Exhale, lunge the right foot between your hands. Drop the left knee to the floor, but keep your left toes tucked. And scoot your left leg a little further back. Now reach your arms to the sky. So we're going to graduate from the knee down version that we just did, which is half crescent. A lot of people call it Ardha Anjayasana, half crescent, to the full crescent. So with our left toes tucked, we're going to pick up the left knee an inch or two off the ground. Your body's going to start firing. This is a challenging pose. The hamstrings, glutes, and quads start to engage to help stabilize the structure. We want enough slack in this back leg to, again, scoop the tailbone under so the frontal hip points lift. Dump into your low back again. We don't want to stick our butt out. We're hiding the butt. Now, front ribs are not only going down and in, but when the front ribs go down and in, the back ribs will start to lift up away from your kidneys, and then you start to slouch in your upper back. So I want you to lift your chest independently of all that. We additionally don't want our arms really wide, so get your arms super wide for a moment. A lot of people do that, or they have bent arms. We want our arms straight and then close to the sides of our cheek. Just like when we're in down dog, everything should be close, not wide. About 1.5 inches, 2 inches, the biceps from the cheekbones. Take a big inhale. I know you're probably shaking. Then exhale, hands come down. Let's step back to plank. You know how this goes. We're going to lower chaturanga. Inhale, cobra, maybe upward dog. Then exhale, downward facing dog. We got one more side, then we'll taper off. Let's inhale, lift the left leg up. Exhale, lunge it forward. You're going to drop the right knee, but keep the right toes tucked. Scoot the right leg further back, and then reach to the sky. So we're in the knee down variation. If this is what you want to practice today, then just stick with this. But so we're continually evolving, increasing our knowledge of the poses. Let's pick the back knee up, just a couple inches. tail goes under. When yoga teachers say hug the outer hips in, all they're saying is they don't want your hips swaying right or left. Stay stationary. I know, it's like, why don't you just say it simple then? We're trying to. We tend to get too complicated. We sink into the front knee. Remember, the front ribs go in, but try not to slouch. Lift the chest. Get the biceps closer to the sides of the face. Straighten the arms more. Take a big inhale. And exhale, hands come down. Let's step back to plank, and let's lower through your last chaturanga. Inhale, cobra pose. Casey's doing up dog right now, which is the arms straight, and the hips are off the floor, and the thighs are off the floor. And then you can find your own way to downward facing dog, however you want to get there. Let's lower to all fours. Let's swivel your feet to the side, and then sit behind your feet. Take your legs through to the front. So we'll extend our legs straight out in front of us. Grab a hold of your butt and move your glutes back. Grab a hold of your legs and move the bottoms of your thighs out. It's like we're just manually putting our body in place. Dorsiflex the feet so your toes point up towards the sky. You'll feel the fronts of the shins engaged. Then inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold your body forward. If you need to take a shirt, I like to do this at home, and you loop the shirt around your feet, it acts as like an extension pole for your arms. So if you can't touch your toes, it's always a nice option to use something like that. And I feel like one of the misconceptions is everyone feels that if you're in a forward bend, you should be able to touch your toes. No. The goal of it is to feel the lengthening in your hamstrings. The goal of the pose is to create space. And how much space or how deep you go is dependent person to person. Not everyone's forward fold is going to look the same as the next. So if you feel the stretch, we're doing something. Even if you're just touching your knees or your shins. And such a healthy pose to do, whether you've taken a run or you just did a couple of crescent poses or variations of those crescent poses like we did. Opening up the legs, opening up the hamstrings. And from here you can sit up. Let's come to a comfortable cross-legged seat. Take your hands at prayer in front of your heart. Take an inhale through your nose. Let's hold your breath for a moment. When we hold our breath in yoga, it's called a kumbhaka, retention. It builds the stress in our body to the surface. And like a detox, you open your mouth and let it go. Thank you guys so much for practicing with us today. This has been another session of Yoga for Absolute Beginners. I'm Tamal. This was Casey Newman. I'll see you again soon. Namaste.